Welcome from all of us at He Is Risen Ministries. Your support by subscribing and giving a thumbs up helps us keep creating videos that inspire and equip those seeking a deeper walk with the Lord. I want to share something personal with you today, something simple, but something that has stayed with me. It starts with a question many of us have heard before, WWJD, what would Jesus do? Now, we've all seen that phrase on bracelets, on shirts, maybe even on bumper stickers, but today I want to slow it down and really feel it, because sometimes we don't struggle with not knowing the phrase, we struggle with actually living it. Let me paint a picture for you. I had this vision, clear as day. I'm sitting in a church right up front, not just any seat, a good seat. And next to me is Jesus. We're sitting together, close, calm, peaceful. Everything feels right. There's a quiet sense of belonging, like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And then someone leans over to me. They whisper, "Your family is here." Now in my vision, my family looks a lot like the Beverly Hillbillies, a little rough around the edges, a little loud, a little out of place, not polished, not refined. You know the type. They don't quite fit the room, and I turn around and I see them. And in that moment, something in me reacts. Not love, not joy, embarrassment. I feel exposed, and without even thinking, I duck down, I shrink, I hide. I don't want them to see me. I don't want to be associated. I don't want the people around me to connect me with them. Maybe you've never done that, but if we're honest, we've all had moments like that, moments where we distance ourselves, moments where we quietly say, "That's not me." But here's where everything changes. Jesus stands up, no hesitation, no discomfort, no embarrassment. He walks to the back of the church, straight toward them, and he doesn't avoid them, he doesn't keep his distance. He greets them, welcomes them, smiles at them, and then he walks them down the aisle, right to the front, to the best seats, to the place where I'm sitting. And suddenly, I'm faced with something I can't ignore. My reaction and his reaction, side by side, and they are not the same, not even close. And that's where WWJD becomes real, because it's easy to say the words, it's easy to wear the bracelet, but when life actually happens, when people show up, when things get uncomfortable, that's when the question matters. What would Jesus do? Let's bring this into Scripture. Think about how Jesus treated people. Tax collectors, outcasts, the unclean, the overlooked. He didn't avoid them. He moved toward them. There's a moment where Jesus says that those who are well don't need a physician, but those who are sick. And then he says he came not to call the righteous, but sinners. That's powerful because it tells us something very important. Jesus isn't drawn to perfection. He's drawn to need. He's drawn to brokenness. He's drawn to people who don't have it all together. And if we're honest, that includes every single one of us, but we forget that. We start to separate. We create categories. These people are like me. Those people are not. And slowly, without even realizing it, we stop seeing people the way Jesus does. Let me put it in everyday terms. Have you ever been in a store and someone walks in and they just stand out? Maybe it's how they're dressed, maybe it's how they act, and you feel it, that subtle tension, that quiet thought in your mind, I hope they don't come over here. Now compare that to Jesus. He would walk straight toward them, not to judge, not to fix, but to love. Or think about this. You're at a family gathering. There's that one relative, the one who always says something awkward or embarrassing, and when they start talking, you kind of step back. You let someone else engage. But Jesus, he would lean in, he would listen, he would give them his full attention, not because they earned it, but because they matter. That's the difference. And that's where WWJD challenges us, because it's not about big dramatic moments. It's about small everyday choices. Who do you move toward? Who do you avoid? Who do you welcome? Who do you quietly push away? In my vision, I wanted to be seen as someone who belonged in the front row, but Jesus showed me something deeper. The front row isn't about status, it's about heart, and his heart is always moving toward people, not away from them. Now let's bring this even closer. Think about your workplace. There's probably someone there who gets overlooked. Maybe they're quiet. Maybe they don't fit in. Maybe they've made mistakes. What would Jesus do? He wouldn't ignore them. He wouldn't wait for someone else. He would take a step, a simple step, a conversation, a kind word, a moment of connection. Or think about social media. It's so easy to scroll past people, to judge from a distance, to form opinions without ever engaging. But Jesus wouldn't scroll past. He would stop. He would see the person behind the post. He would care. And here's the part that really hits home. In that vision, those hillbillies, that was me. That's us. Because before we knew him, we were the ones who didn't belong. We were the ones who didn't fit. We were the ones who needed grace. And Jesus didn't duck down. He didn't hide from us. He came to us. He walked toward us. He brought us in. He gave us a place, a seat, a home. And when you realize that, everything changes. Because now WWJD isn't just a question. It becomes a response, a reflection, a way of life. You begin to see people differently. You begin to slow down. You begin to notice. And little by little, you start to become more like him. Not perfectly, but genuinely. Let me say something important. Loving like Jesus is not natural. It goes against our instincts. Our instincts say, protect yourself, stay comfortable, stick with people like you. But Jesus calls us higher. He calls us to love beyond comfort, to welcome beyond preference, to serve beyond convenience. And that's not easy. There will be moments where you hesitate, moments where you feel that same urge I felt to duck down, to hide, to distance yourself. But in those moments, pause, ask the question, what would Jesus do? And then take one small step in that direction. You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to become perfect. Just take the step. Maybe it's a smile, maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's choosing not to walk away. Those small steps, and they matter because they shape your heart. They align you with him, and over time they transform you. You begin to reflect his character, his patience, his kindness, his compassion. And people notice, not because you're trying to impress them, but because something is different, something is real. And that's the goal, not to act like Jesus on the surface, but to become like him from the inside out. And that only happens when we stay close to him, when we listen to him, when we let his word shape us. Because the more time you spend with him, the more his heart becomes your heart. And suddenly, the things that once embarrassed you become opportunities. Opportunities to love, opportunities to serve, opportunities to reflect him. So let me bring this back to that moment in the church. Jesus walking down the aisle, leading those people forward, giving them the best seats. That's the image I want you to hold on to, because that's who he is, and that's who he's calling us to become. Not people who hide, but people who welcome. Not people who judge, but people who love. Not people who distance, but people who draw near. And when we live like that, we don't just talk about WWJD. We live it. We embody it. We become a reflection of him in a world that desperately needs it. So today, as you go about your life, pay attention. Notice the moments, the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones where you have a choice. And in those moments, ask the question, what would Jesus do? And then trust him enough to follow through, because the one who walked toward you is now walking with you, and he will guide you, he will shape you, he will help you become more like him, one step at a time. If someone you care about is struggling with this subject, you might bless them by passing along the link. For now, rest in the knowledge that the one who loved you first has already prepared a place for you in his eternal family, and may his voice ring clearly and powerfully this very day.